Have you ever felt exhausted before your workday has even truly begun, as if your life is already crowded with too many things competing for your attention? You wake up choosing clothes, replying to notifications, clearing your desk, searching for a charger, checking a delivery, and your energy quietly fades before you've produced anything? We often assume every purchase costs money only once, even though each possession quietly begins asking for something far more expensive than cash your attention. The more things we own, the more small decisions fill each day, even though the human brain was never designed for unlimited choices. Many people work harder to buy more possessions, yet every additional item quietly leaves less room to simply enjoy daily life. Perhaps we've misunderstood wealth by assuming it means buying anything, when it may instead begin with having fewer things demanding our attention. This video is not about minimalist trends or perfectly organized homes, but about how excessive ownership quietly reduces your ability to earn and enjoy life. Because the largest cost of owning something may not be the price you pay today, but the attention you continue paying every single day afterward. When we buy something, we usually notice the price tag but rarely count every cost that begins after the purchase is complete. A car is never just a monthly payment because it also demands fuel, maintenance, insurance, parking, cleaning, and constant attention whenever something sounds unusual. The same pattern applies to almost everything because every additional possession quietly adds another small task demanding your time each day. Psychology describes one effect as decision fatigue, where countless small choices gradually reduce the quality of more important decisions. Choosing clothes may only take minutes, but thousands of similar daily decisions quietly become a long-term cost that almost nobody notices. The real loss is not only time because your focus slowly wears away until meaningful work begins to feel much heavier. Attention is often a scarcer economic asset than money because lost money can return, while divided attention may erase opportunities that never come back. Modern life excels at selling new products, yet almost nobody reminds us that every possession arrives with an invisible maintenance contract. Without realizing it, we often work harder simply to maintain a lifestyle that never truly feels more satisfying, while our possessions begin demanding our attention instead. As attention keeps disappearing into small distractions, the resource needed for high-value work gradually becomes harder to protect over the long term. Protecting attention may explain why some people appear calm despite living more simply, because they intentionally reduce what competes for their focus rather than lacking options. Attention behaves like investment capital because every small distraction leaves less available for work that creates meaningful long-term value. Think about the last time you worked for a full, uninterrupted hour without notifications, unfinished chores, or an endless stream of tiny decisions competing for your focus. Each interruption looks insignificant on its own, yet together they gradually become constant mental noise that quietly reduces productivity over time. Research suggests that switching focus repeatedly forces the brain to spend time recovering concentration, leaving work slower and thinking less effective. The largest cost of excessive consumption is not always a credit card bill because it can also be the gradual loss of clear and deep thinking. People often ask how to earn more money, yet rarely ask why so much attention disappears into activities that produce little lasting value. The fewer distractions we maintain, the more capacity remains for learning, building skills, creating valuable work, or making stronger financial decisions over the long term. Minimalism is not defined by an empty home or half-filled closet, but by choosing to protect the most expensive resource we own, our attention. When attention returns to what matters most, financial results often move alongside that focus because valuable work usually comes from sustained concentration. There is a cost that almost never appears in any financial statement because it quietly drains attention, instead of money whenever life becomes crowded with things that barely matter. Spending 30 minutes every morning searching for belongings, choosing clothes, or organizing a crowded home may feel small until those minutes quietly compound into hundreds of lost hours over a year. Many writers and investors describe one of their best investments as removing distractions so more mental energy stays available for work that actually creates value over the long term. The same pattern appears among creative professionals and founders because fewer distractions compete for their attention throughout each ordinary day. Modern consumer culture keeps suggesting that each purchase improves life, even though the excitement often fades while the responsibility quietly remains. More belongings often lead to buying more storage and eventually larger living spaces simply to keep everything somewhere. Without noticing it, the common response to growing consumption is often even more consumption, creating a cycle that never seems to feel lighter. Most stored possessions are rarely used, yet they continue occupying physical space and quiet mental space every single day. Wealth may not only be measured by everything collected because it can also be shaped by everything released before ownership starts taking control. The less energy spent managing possessions, the more energy remains available for creating meaningful work where quiet compounding can gradually take place. Instead of looking at what something once cost, ask whether it continues creating value in your everyday life over a long time horizon. Imagine every possession sitting through a short interview before it earns another place inside your home. The first question asks whether the item helps create value through work, health, or continued learning despite everyday volatility. If not, the next question simply asks whether seeing that item still brings genuine appreciation each day. When both answers remain no, the item may no longer behave like an asset and instead quietly demand space, attention, and maintenance. The same idea extends beyond physical belongings to subscriptions, phone apps, and constant notifications competing for attention. Small pieces of attention disappearing over time can carry a greater long-term cost than the money being spent. Removing one unnecessary distraction is like reclaiming a small piece of mental space for something else. The audit is not about owning the fewest things, but about questioning whether each possession is still working for you. In the end, the most valuable asset may simply be whatever allows your attention to remain whole over the long term. There is a common misunderstanding about wealth because people often measure it by what is visible, even though much of it exists where no one can see it. Wealth can keep growing while other people chase new purchases, because choosing not to buy something also changes where money remains over a long time horizon. Money that is not spent remains available to keep working in the future through compounding instead of disappearing immediately after a purchase. A luxury watch may attract attention for a few seconds, while a long-term investment portfolio usually remains invisible to everyone else. Society often pays more attention to symbols of wealth than to the long process that actually builds wealth over time. When someone stops buying things just to appear successful, more capital remains available instead of being spent on appearances. Every avoided purchase leaves behind more than money because it also preserves future investment opportunities, mental space, and time. Over time, smaller decisions begin reinforcing one another as fewer distractions leave more room for clearer thinking and better financial decisions. Many people spend their energy chasing a life that looks expensive, even though a valuable life can appear surprisingly simple from the outside. The fewer things a person carries through daily life, the more room remains for building the life they want over a long time horizon. After seeing all of this, it may be time to redefine what wealth really means, because wealth is often linked to buying more when it may simply mean needing less. Modern life often measures success by what people can see, including larger homes, more expensive cars, and lifestyles that become harder to maintain over time. Every status symbol also carries costs that stay out of sight, including maintenance, payments, and the ongoing pressure to preserve a carefully built image. Without realizing it, some people no longer work for freedom, but to keep paying for a lifestyle they never truly wanted. When social validation becomes the priority, higher income often arrives alongside higher spending while the feeling of calm remains unchanged. People who can say no to unimportant desires are creating more room to think, choose, and live according to the values they already hold. Financial freedom may have less to do with buying anything and more to do with not feeling required to buy something just to be accepted. The less life depends on other people's approval, the less it costs to keep that image going year after year. Minimalism is not simply about owning fewer things, but about no longer building identity through possessions and instead through the value people create, When value replaces symbols, wealth no longer feels like something that needs to be displayed because it quietly exists without explanation. Why can owning less sometimes lead to earning more? Because money is only one form of capital, while attention, time, and energy also shape our long-term financial future. When attention, time, and energy are constantly spent maintaining unimportant things, our ability to create value gradually becomes smaller, even while we stay busy. As life becomes simpler, more space appears for reading, learning, building skills, or developing work that may hold long-term value. That is where the multiplier effect begins, as one small decision to reduce distractions today can influence financial decisions years later. The less energy is wasted, the more remains available for work with real impact, while much of long-term wealth is built through that gradual process rather than a single decision. That may explain why highly productive people often live in surprisingly ordinary ways, leaving room instead of filling every corner. The world constantly offers reasons to buy more, yet only a few people pause long enough to ask what the long-term cost of ownership really is. The question sounds simple, but an honest answer can reshape how we work, manage money, and approach everyday life. In the end, wealth is not only about what we collect, but also about how little distraction stands between us and creating value. Perhaps the greatest multiplier in life does not come from investment compounding alone, but from attention returning to what truly deserves it. We've spent so much time chasing a life that looks bigger, even though a lighter life may leave more room for what truly matters over the long term. Minimalism isn't about having less for its own sake. It's about choosing carefully so your attention isn't constantly spent on things that lead nowhere. At the margin, we see money as more than a balance because it reflects how we spend our time, attention, and everyday choices. The biggest financial strain often doesn't begin with a small income, but with countless, unnoticed things quietly draining life little by little. If this perspective resonates with you, consider subscribing because this channel explores both money management and the ways money quietly shapes modern life. If you had to let go of half the things you own today, which item would you miss the least and why? Share your answer in the comments because someone else may see life differently after reading it, and you may see your own choices differently too. Thank you for spending this time with The Margin, and we'll see you in the next episode.